on the lived experiences of autistic women. So I just wanted to start off with a bit of an introduction and a definition. It's kind of a clinical definition, but according to the DSM-5, autism is a neurological developmental condition and is characterized by repetition in behaviors, focus on certain interests, and differences in sensory processing. So like I said, that's kind of the clinical definition, but the understanding of autism has really evolved over the last 50 years. And the reason why it's considered a developmental disorder is because it is usually diagnosed in childhood and mostly early childhood. However, like I said, that's been changing, and we're seeing now more and more people have been diagnosed in adulthood, middle age, especially women. And so there are a few different reasons for this, and one of the most consistent findings in the research currently is that there's a difference between the male to female ratio in autism. So that ratio is 4 to 1. Men are 4 times more likely to be diagnosed with autism compared to women, and that's not because women are not autistic, it's just because it's not recognized in women as it is in males. One of the main reasons for this disparity, and something that past research has focused on, is that has been focused on males. This is not specific to like autism. It's actually prominent in like a lot of different health conditions. Like a common example is heart attacks. We often see that women like have different symptoms for heart attacks, which is why they get to the emergency room, doctors don't know they're having a heart attack, and unfortunately that has fatal consequences. So because of that difference, because of like the prevalence in the research, many women are either misdiagnosed or undiagnosed or diagnosed later in life. And another reason for this is called the phenomenon of masking. And so what that is when autistic women kind of adopt certain like socially acceptable behaviors, traits, patterns, they mimic other people around them, and that kind of masks their autistic traits. And they do this consciously or unconsciously, and this can hide markers of autism. So this is why like people around them, doctors, professionals, it's kind of harder for them to recognize autism in girls, even though they do have it, but just because of, again, like the male-centric diagnostic criteria and the masking, like these two things kind of feed each other, and that's why so many of them go undiagnosed. So because of more people have been noticing these differences, and there has been emerging research on autistic women, but it's kind of focused on misdiagnosis and barriers, and to me that's kind of, it feels a little bit negative. It kind of focuses on struggle a lot, and besides that, it's also focused on young children and also on the perception of people around them, so like parents, colleagues, siblings, teachers, clinicians, and not exactly like the women themselves. So that kind of inspired me to do this research. So I actually did a project or an assignment in my second year on the biological differences between males and females who have autism. And that was interesting, but as like a public health student, I was more interested in the social aspects of these differences. So that's why I kind of decided to take this approach with this research, because it's not been really explored before. And I also took like a couple of social development courses like disability justice, and that has also like informed this project that I did. So that's been kind of at the back of my mind, and I reached out to Dr. Elena Naderman, who's a professor at the Faculty of Health, and I kind of explained my interests, and she was like, she thought it was interesting, so she agreed to do an independent study with me. And so after a little bit of back and forth, we came up with this research question: what is lived experience of autistic women navigating the diagnostic journey? So, like I said, Dr. Niederman, her focus is on qualitative research, which is what I wanted to do for my project. And I'm definitely more of a creative person. I like storytelling and exploring things through story, and so I kind of talked to her about this, and she told me that there's actually a kind of like qualitative method called narrative thematic analysis that kind of fits exactly what I wanted to do. So narrative thematic analysis is a framework that kind of focuses on deriving meaning from stories and from narratives, personal experiences, and how if you look at like sequences of experiences of individual people, there will be certain themes that emerge from that, and that can kind of reveal the bigger picture and like the social structures and kind of like contextualize individual experiences as well. So that seemed kind of perfect for my project. Originally, I wanted to kind of conduct interviews myself with autistic women, but because of like time constraints and recruitment issues, that wasn't possible. So Dr. Newman suggested I take an ethnography approach, which is basically ethnography but online. So looking at like publicly available online sources as kind of the data and analyzing that instead of doing one-on-one interviews face-to-face with people. So one of the thing that kind of guided my research was I really wanted to center voices of autistic women themselves. There is a disability justice phrase, nothing about us without us, and like currently in one of my policy classes, I'm kind of learning about how a lot of health policies exclude like the people that they're meant to serve. So that's something that I wanted to be mindful of when doing this project. So what I did was I went online and I talked to Dr. Niederman about different search terms and criteria. And like I said, the main criteria I wanted was to have first-hand accounts from autistic women themselves. And so I did a search and I compiled I compiled 13 online narratives, and these included like essays, video essays, online articles, and blog posts. So in qualitative research, what you do is you kind of go through these again and again. Like I transcribed the videos and I kind of put it all into one place. And basically I went through it multiple times and kind of highlighted the most important things that stood out to me. And that's called creating codes. So I had a bunch of codes, and then I worked with my supervisor and we kind of created 4 major categories or major themes for these codes. And so these are the 4 major themes. The first one was confusion and misunderstanding in childhood. The second one is masking in adolescence. The third one is burnout and pursuit of talents. And the last one is clarity through diagnosis and reconnection with oneself. So because of kind of my creative background, I really wanted to incorporate storytelling into my project. So a formal written report was required as part of the course, the independent study, but Dr. Niederman suggested that I could do like a supplementary creative piece to kind of go with the research. So what I decided to do was write a short story, a fictional story that was inspired by the research, by the lit review, and by the methodology. And I wrote like a chronological narrative that follows a single woman from childhood to middle age as she navigates being autistic and getting a diagnosis. So that was kind of the end goal of this research, and hopefully, inshallah, the goal is to get that published somewhere, whether in a journal article or like an open source website or something. I'm still trying to work on that. But I just wanted to end off with why this research is important. First of all, these narratives, like I said, they can help to inform diagnostic frameworks so that they are more inclusive of women's experiences. I kind of mentioned like something that comes up repeatedly in policy is that a lot of the times they exclude the people who they're meant for, and not just like in every phase of policy making, like probably the least concern is like the people who it's being done for. So this kind of research the hope is to like inform policies, inform frameworks, and to kind of improve that aspect of policymaking. And there's also, I feel like this is not the first thing you think about when like you think about like a diagnosis, a mental health diagnosis, but there is a social and emotional aspect to it. And when it comes to care and like receiving support, that aspect is really important. And focusing on that, it can really change the quality of care that a person receives. And that's kind of what I hope to do with this research and moving forward as well. I think women's mental health is one of the most under-addressed topics in this country and worldwide. So I'm hoping to continue with this research and explore that. And finally, I think there is just like a really big impact in sharing stories. I was reading a book earlier that kind of said one of the wisdoms of the reasons why like the Prophet Muhammad was like told so many stories of the prophets before him was just for him to have like that relatable aspect, to see like what others before him, what difficulties they went through, how he could relate to that and how he could navigate his own difficulties. So that kind of it gives a person strength, it gives a person hope. So if like you share something and like one person is impacted by it and they kind of, the whole trajectory of their life can kind of change, which I think is really powerful. And I think we need kind of more of that. We need spaces like that in especially academia and in research. So that's why I'm hoping to kind of bring that into my work going forward as well, inshallah. I think that's it. If anyone has any questions.
Just to go back to the major themes that you identified real quick, as someone who lives with autism, has lived experience as an autistic man, I feel like I can relate to these major themes pretty closely, and I was wondering if within your storytelling you've considered how to differentiate the lived experience of women living with autism, because through my own understanding and through my own research into the topic, there's cases where women are often misdiagnosed with something like BPD or something to that effect, and there's also the effect that a patriarchal system has on viewing the female experience more rigidly than they do the male experience, where men are allowed to, or it's more acceptable for men to manifest certain attributes in certain ways that women aren't allowed. So I was wondering if that had, if you go more in depth in that with your storytelling.
Yes, I do. There is like a part of the story where the character is like diagnosed with something else that often happens with autistic women, and for women specifically, masking is a big part of that, because like that takes like an emotional toll on women. So you mentioned BPD, that's definitely like one of the effects of masking, because like just like the emotional effort it takes to like suppress those characteristics takes that toll, and like often the most common ones I would say are anxiety and depression as well. But that's not like the root problem, so that's kind of what happens like early on in life. A lot of autistic women find that they're diagnosed with BPD, anxiety, depression. So that is definitely something I explored in the story as well. And what was your second point, sorry?
It was just about how patriarchal expectations of women make it so that their lived experience is viewed more rigidly. So I was wondering if that was also a factor.
Exactly,
because men are allowed to exist unmasked much more frequently than women are, because an unmasked woman is viewed as hysterical.
That ties into like the social acceptability part of it as well. And there are also like biological like phenotypic differences between men and women for autism. So like sometimes like an autistic woman, she might not like present all the same like characteristics as an autistic male that are considered socially unacceptable. Some of them are like actually like quiet, or like not disruptive, like a lot of negative things when it comes to like girls or women. So there's that difference as well. But I did explore those things in the story, because it was something that I found repeatedly coming up when I went through like the different narratives I found online, like again and again and again. that like their experience as a woman is just so different, and like the social expectations that come with just.
I wonder if maybe another theme. Sorry to cut you
Sorry,
off, but
go
maybe
ahead.
another theme could be like the feeling of depersonalization, or of feeling like revoked of womanhood because of the lived experience as an autistic woman, whereas a man doesn't usually feel stripped of his manhood because of his manifestation of his autism, because being a man is viewed as the default by society, whereas for a woman it's a lot more depersonalizing.
That's interesting. I didn't see that come up in the things I saw, but that is interesting. Yeah.
I have a small follow-up question.
Yeah.
Is that font? It's a unique font. Is that Ultimatum?
I don't know.
Oh.
Honestly, I don't. When I was making the presentation, this is not the font.
Oh.
I think it's just like a laptop
Interesting.
different. I don't know what's the
No,
font.
I think we got them as
on
PowerPoints,
Google Doc,
and
yeah.
this is on Docs,
Oh,
and it like
okay.
changes the
Yeah.
font.
I see.
So the question is mystery font.
I don't know.
Okay. It looks like Ultimatum, but
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I had I guess more like boring question. I was just curious what platform or software you use for coding.
I did it manually. So I was going to use NVivo, which is what my supervisor suggested. But to be honest with you, I found that more time consuming than doing it manually. And because like qualitative research is pretty subjective, I thought like it was okay for me to like go through it and do it manually. I didn't have like, well, she did, like she was like, if you do it manually, it will take much more time. But I just, honestly, for like the purposes of this project, I just found that doing the most sense for me to do it myself. But usually NVivo is what they use for coding, yeah.
Based on your findings in this study, like, what's the next step for you?
What's the next step for me?
Yeah.
I want to explore this topic more. So, like originally, I kind of wanted to do like more generally research like women's mental health and women's experiences with mental health. But my supervisor said that like that's too broad to get more specific. But I'm hoping to, inshallah, do more research on women's mental health. So like I mentioned, I'm interested in also disability justice, and I kind of heard something recently where someone said like pregnancy is considered a disability. So I've just kind of been thinking about that, and I'm hoping to like explore maybe like add another element to this is like what are pregnant women's experiences with like mental health challenges or autism, mothers' experiences with mental health challenges and autism. So that I think that's the next step I want to take in like furthering this research, and hopefully inshallah yeah it goes well. Thank you.
That's awesome. Are we able to read your short stories?
If you're interested, yeah, I can send it to you. Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, I might be a little bit behind, but
That's okay.
what exactly is meant by masking in adolescence? Like what,
Sure.
could you give a couple examples?
Sure. So masking is basically when someone like mimics or copies like other people's social behaviors to hide what naturally comes to them. A common thing is like eye contact. So a difficulty for a lot of autistic people and women is like eye contact. They have difficulty making eye contact, but like if they see other people, that's what they're doing, that's normal for them, then they will quite literally like practice this behavior. And so when they're in public or when they're in social settings, you don't see like there's a problem with eye contact there. So that doesn't come up, and so people don't think like they're any different. That's one example. Another would be like just like hiding certain interests that are like socially acceptable. So if somebody is like, I don't know, interested in like a topic or like
Mario.
a hobby, sorry?
Mario.
Huh?
Imagine you're into Super Mario,
Yeah.
but you don't talk about it.
Yeah, but
because
you don't talk about it because people see it as like childish or like that's not normal. So they will kind of mask their interests as well. Those are a few examples, if that makes sense. Did you have a question? Yes.
How do you see diagnostic tools changing to identify women with autism for masking or doing these things if you see that if it's found that there's a need?
That's a good question. I'm hoping to figure that out more with like further research, but one thing I will say is that just having like more women like included in like diagnostic criteria, because like it's been focused on male research, right? Like the diagnostic criteria tools were formed with research that has been done on males and boys mostly. So I just think like being more understanding of the diverse experiences of autism, and like not focusing on like the typical characteristics, I think that could help as well. But I don't have a detailed answer for that because like this was kind of a short project. I didn't go into too much depth, especially into the clinical side of it. But that's something that hopefully I will explore in the future.
I apologize. I know there seems to be a lot of discussion around this, so Jazakallah khair, I appreciate the presentation. Yeah, quick round of applause.